Richard Rodgers with a walk-off touchdown. Total disbelief at Ford Field.
He may go all the way to the 20 down the right side, and it's Randall Cobb to the 5, to the end zone, to the touchdown. Oh my goodness.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Green and Golden Boys podcast, a Packers podcast for fans who are wondering, is this a trap game?
Oh no!
This is Marcus, and with me as always is Charles. Charles, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Is this a trap game?
No, it can't be a trap game. This is the Vikings. It's the border battle.
Border battle. And I agree with you. I think if this were a different, maybe a non-conference team or somebody, an uncommon opponent, maybe. But this is a team that the Packers take seriously year after year. It's been the biggest rival in the NFC North for the last probably decade, honestly. And I don't think the Packers are going to take this one lightly. It is going to be a tough game. This is a tough Minnesota Vikings team. Record aside, they've been to 4 overtime games, I think, and their losses have come, I think, less than 7 points per each. So, I mean, this team could easily be, 7-3, 8-2, just like the Packers are, but
easily. Now we'll get into it, a second here. I mean, the Packers have also won a lot of close games, and I'll take my money on a team that can win close games than one that seems to lose. I hear that from Vikings fans all the time, like, oh, well, if that field goal was made, in Cincinnati, or this happened or that happened, or our records would be reversed. And I say, well, yeah, that didn't happen. So,
right.
But in all seriousness, to give the Vikings credit, even though I just talked a little smack there, despite their record where they are, they're in the playoff hunt, right? I mean, this is a huge game for them. If they would have lost last week against the Chargers, yeah, pack it up, they're done. But they're in the playoff hunt. They have a real chance at getting to the wild card game. And they need every single game. And frankly, we haven't played a team with this kind of run attack yet this season. So this is going to be a very new test for this Packers defense that's been playing so well. And if we're looking past the Vikings right now, then that's a huge mistake, and that's a game that we'll lose if we're not mentally ready for it.
Yeah, and to your point, this is a Packers. I mean, if there's one weakness on this defense right now, compared to the other aspects, it's our rush D. I mean, our rush D ranks, I think, 19th in the league right now with like 120 or 110 yards allowed per game, which isn't great. Vikings are a top 10 offense, both in passing and in rushing yards. I mean, they're rushing about 123 yards a game right now. So that, if I'm the Vikings, that's kind of my bread and butter. I mean, you've got Dalvin Cook, who's probably a top 6, top 7 back in the league, maybe top 5. You can make an argument for that, but it's going to start with him, because I think when he gets going, that opens everything up for Kirk Cousins, and he doesn't have to rely too much on his arm. But if he does, he still has 2 all-pro type players with Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson. So again, this is a potent offense and a better team than a lot of people give him credit for, and it's going to be a tough test for our defense. Maybe as tough as these last 3 games have been.
Well, and Aaron Rodgers versus Mike Zimmer is 7-7-1, so no one really owns anyone in this matchup, but you could argue that Dalvin Cook owns the Green Bay Packers D.
Yeah.
He has his longest rush in his career against our defense, and he has his longest reception against the Packers. So Dalvin Cook very much is the guy to watch, and there's some strategies that I think that we should take to make sure we contain him as best as we can, right? I mean, he's going to get 90 to 100 yards, almost for sure. I don't think that means we lose the game, but we can't have him have a 150-yard game.
Yep, and so if you're, if we're talking defense, what does our D have to do to stop Dalvin Cook? How do we eliminate him as a threat?
Well, we talked about it in our last episode about what looks so good, and I think it starts with our corners, and we need to be able, in my opinion, to match up one-on-one on their top receivers. Stokes is probably going to be up against Justin Jefferson, and that means Kevin King probably is going to be on Thielen or someone else in the slot. And the reason why I start there is because if we don't have to double those guys and we can have another great game out of our corners, then we could put another man in the box, if you will. Essentially, take someone out of the secondary and put an extra linebacker in to stop Dalvin, because that's got to be our number one. Let Justin beat us, right? Let Kirk beat us. Don't let Dalvin beat us.
Right. Yep. No, and I agree. And strategy aside, it's going to be a tough test, and it's going to be a great opportunity for some of our see what our inside linebackers are made of. I think they've been playing really well as of late. But we've obviously got Chris Barnes who's coming off a huge game. Devondre Campbell has been really good this year. Let's talk a little bit about this Vikings defense, because I believe they might be getting Harrison Smith back, which could be a huge boon for their defense. What does the Packers offense have to do to be effective? We've stumbled the last couple weeks, and obviously Aaron Rodgers is coming off of essentially a 2-week hiatus. Jordan Love played against the Chiefs, and so not high expectations there. But an offense that has been sputtering lately. How do we get back on track?
Well, I think it goes right back to the recipe that we've had before, or last week at least, with A.J. Dillon, right? I mean, if he has himself a day and he can not keep up with Dalvin Cook, but have similar type performance, we're now there doing the same thing. They're not doubling our wide receivers, and they're needing to put an extra guy in the box. I trust Aaron Rodgers a lot more than Kirk Cousins to be able to pick apart a secondary of the Vikings, who's not nearly the same as what we got going on in Green Bay. So, cliche, we should just copy and paste every podcast we ever do, because it's similar. But if we get a strong run game here, and then we get Aaron hopefully feeling more like Aaron and not coming off of COVID Aaron, then I trust my, Devontae Adams, MVS, Lazard to pick apart the secondary a bit more than they'll be able to pick us apart.
Gotcha. Yep. I mean, you mentioned Aaron Rodgers. You mentioned Devontae Adams. You mentioned Alan Lazard. You mentioned MVS. These guys are all listed on the injury report this week. Every single one of them. And we didn't even talk about Mercedes Lewis. We didn't even talk about EQ St. Brown. But you're essentially talking about our entire wide receiving core and our number one tight end right now, and our quarterback on the injury report. I mean, do we have to be worried? Are these guys going to be able to compete this week without risking major injury, or just trying to be effective?
Offensively, I think we're going to be fine. I mean, when I say offensively, I think the guys on this injury report, I think this is more of a result of the Packers having such a late bye. I think, that sure, I'm not questioning their injuries necessarily, but this might be more of a break that they need, their bodies just need, because I mean, half the league has already had their bye, and we still have another 2 weeks for the Packers. So I'm hoping, I don't, offensively, none of these injuries I've seen at least seem to be putting these guys in real question, except for maybe Mercedes Lewis. Defensively, I think we're in some trouble. I know we kind of moved on from the defensive conversation, but I do want to circle back to that quickly, because the line, the betting line on this game actually went from 2.5 to 1.5, away from the Packers, because I think we really only have one pass rusher right now in Preston Smith. Rashawn Gary said he wants to play. It looks like he's practicing a little bit, but I mean, there's a very good chance that Rashawn Gary is not playing. And if that's the case, then I think the Vikings could potentially put a lot of points on us if Kirk Cousins has time and space to move. So that's the side of the injury report that I'm more concerned about.
Yeah. And, to talk about Rashawn Gary a little bit, I mean, I guess a silver lining, it's an arm injury. He's moving it around. He's not in a cast or anything. He is in a brace. Well, not a brace, but kind of a sort of a, I don't even know if you'd call it a sling or something, whatever. But, he does lead the NFC in rushes. So I guess silver lining, if he can get to Kirk Cousins and not necessarily have to sack him and bring him down, but hurry him up, make him flush out of the pocket and make him make a couple mistakes, I think we're going to be okay. I don't think he needs to have both arms available just to put the pressure on. If that makes sense at all, I'm not sure it does. But that's kind of the silver lining I think I'm bringing with it. He has been limited this week, but he is participating in practice, so we'll see. I mean, I anticipate him going on Sunday, but I think as long as he can keep his legs churning and create some impact at the point of attack, I think he'll be able to put some pressure on Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, 100%. If he goes, I feel a lot better. If it's Preston Smith by himself, essentially, I don't feel good because you watched the game last week. It was Whitney Merciless and Rashawn Gary. Right, we lost Merciless for the year now, right? Yeah. And if Gary can't come, then that's some trouble. But to get back to this Vikings defense and this Packers offense, I feel good. Like I said, like we talked about, Rodgers was on the injury report last week. He played. He didn't look great. I don't chalk it up to the toe. I chalk it up to him not being on the field for 17 days until then. So I feel good. It's an indoor stadium. Rodgers, I think, is gonna be playing better in the indoor stadium, but it's gonna be a loud stadium, right? The Vikings have a very loud fan base, and we just need to be AJ Dillon in particular, needs to be prepared to be that number one back, starting from snap one, and all be on the same page. And the thing I'll be looking for, and I think you actually sent me an article on this, and I'm rambling here, but play clock, how we're using our timeouts and whatnot. I would love to see this ball being snapped with 5 seconds left on the play clock instead of 1, so the defense isn't jumping off on us. And I think that's going to take all these younger guys, A.J. Dillon included, to be on the same page of Aaron, so we're ready and not wasting timeouts and not wasting valuable play clock.
Yeah, well, and hopefully Josiah DeGuara can get his shit together and kind of figure out how to play football at the NFL level, as far as being mentally prepared. And I'm sorry, he's a good football player, but when you're in the red zone and you're it's first and goal or second and goal, and you have to take a 5-yard delay of game penalty because your tight end doesn't know where to line up, that is really frustrating. Anyways, I would agree. You brought up an indoor stadium. I don't think we talk enough about the impact that travel and the stadium can have on the team. And this is a short trip. Green Bay to Minneapolis is probably like a 45-minute flight. So it's as close as you can get, basically, almost as close as Chicago. But yeah, Aaron Rodgers plays pretty well historically indoors, but it's a super loud stadium, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I think crowd noise could be a factor this week for sure. But with a full week of practice this week, Aaron Rodgers with the ones, I think that they'll be able to kind of mitigate any sort of, negative impact from the crowd noise. I guess as best as well as anybody can going into US Bank Stadium. But that's just an interesting thing. I don't think we talk about that quite enough because there's always that sort of aspect, going into, to an opponent's stadium. But anyway. Let's talk a little bit about our predictions, or do you want to give a guy on offense and defense you think is going to be a difference maker for the Packers to win this one?
I think the difference maker defensively is going to be Rashawn Gary if he can go or not. Not necessarily how he plays, but if he's in the game or not. I think that's going to, like I said, I already laid it out. The line essentially moved because we lost 2 pass rushers this past week. And I think that's going to be huge defensively. Offensively, I'm going to go with our guy AJ Dillon. Have a huge game. He had his first rushing touchdown last week, and he had 2 of them. He had a receiving touchdown a couple weeks earlier, but I think those are the 2 guys that they're the young guys, but I want to see them have themselves a game and hopefully be in the game for us to have success. How about you?
I honestly haven't given this much thought, so I'm kind of on the fly. I'm gonna go with our secondary, and I think in particular our safeties, because they're gonna, our corners are gonna need some help over the top when you've got guys like Adam Thielen and then Justin Jefferson who can really stretch the field. He's a threat anywhere he lines up. So I'm gonna say if we can keep those big plays to a minimum, keep our safety help over the top and have solid coverage on those 2 guys, then we're putting ourselves into a really good position to win this game. But if we're allowing Justin Jefferson, 20, 30-yard gains, Adam Thielen wide open in the end zone, in the red zone, it's going to be a long day for our defense. Offensively, I'm not going to go